Recording is on.
Good to go.
Okay. Christoph, do you want to do the intro?
Oh yeah. So welcome anyone listening. This is Bitcoin Core app design call number something. Anyone have the current number?
I think 45.
45. Yes, excellent. Thank you. And I think the main topic is here kind of preparing for a first release, right?
Yep.
And Gerald, you were just about
V1.
to I don't know, unleash yourself or something.
Yeah, so previously I was talking about I just kind of reiterated why this work is important here, reducing the friction for user to self-custody, enforce the rules of the network. And now we're trying to sort of set a deadline or just a goal for when V1 is to be released. I think a realistic timeline would be the end of this month where the binaries are ready. And so we'll talk about the issues that are remaining, preventing that from happening now. But I think the end of the month is a good timeline where the raw binary that we'll give to people is complete. And then I guess we need some time to create the media, right? The plan, uh, Twitter blog posts, and all that good stuff to spread it out there, and also have the website, have the feedback portal, whether that be like a Google form or anything like that, to take feedback in, get all that ready. So I think so the binaries would be ready by the end of the month, and then I think maybe another week is a good timeline to have the extra things done. So create the blog post, find the pathways to spread it on, and have the feedback portals ready. What do you guys think about that? So if we take that into consideration, we're talking about uh, by something like December 9th, we have this out there in the world.
Okay, December 9th.
We're talking about a basically saying, "Hey, whole world, here it is," or more like, "Hey, people that we kind of know, please help us test this type of thing. It's ready for you."
Yeah, so the binaries should be done by the end of this month, and that means the UI issues, getting that done. Um, so I think by December 9th, it's ready to kind of show to the world instead of a small group of people. I think um, before December 9th, we'll already be sharing it with a small group of people, and I
Okay.
think that'll go by fast. In terms of quality assurance, um, there's not going to be any large considerations of whether like the application explodes or not, because we're just not doing enough things really at this point for that to really
Yeah.
occur. Now the UI, and that's something we'll talk about on the call. There's considerable issues with Android that can be addressed pretty quickly. We just have to decide how we'll address them. But yeah, the application isn't going to blow up or anything. And so I think by December 9th, we can just show it to the world, or whoever wants to, right? And collect their feedback.
Okay, cool. There's a community call on November 30. Maybe even if the binaries are ready or not, we could
Oh,
still
cool.
just pull it up and talk about it.
Yeah, that's perfect then. That's kind of a soft release without all of the bells and whistles of the blog post, right? With the design community.
Mhm.
And if everything checks out there, if everything's okay, then we can go ahead, right, with like December 9th.
Yeah.
A question for you. I'm making some notes here. I'm calling it media plan. Where would you think would be the best channels to post about the release and then requesting people for feedback? I'm sure you guys know these kind of channels better than I do. So, where are you guys thinking of, like Bitcoin Design Guide Twitter? Do you guys have a Bitcoin Core has a Twitter, or a bit more loosely?
Yeah, I think one thing before that though is to kind of establish what is our goal with, even having this sort of media plan. And I think the goal is to just make people aware that
Mhm.
this is happening, and to make people aware that they can have a voice, and there's avenues for them to help move this along and to give their input as to how they would like it to operate, because
Mhm.
it's built for and by the community, right? um, so that's kind of the goal. And then the avenues would be, Twitter, right? I think a couple of years ago, I'd kind of laugh at the idea, but Bitcoin Twitter is there's a lot of people there, right? I think it's an important place to share it. Other
Yeah.
than that, I think we did talk about Gemini with a blog post, but I think we might not be seeing that for several reasons. But
Ooh.
um,
Ooh.
but yeah, but Twitter
Yeah.
and I'm thinking of writing sort of a long form blog post detailing my viewpoints on it, but that's not so relevant. The
Yeah.
only thing I can think of again is Twitter.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
I think we have to be aware how we phrase this, because this cannot, if you're using the Bitcoin QT GUI right now, you cannot replace it yet, because this
Mhm.
new application only does something very simple. It just runs a node right now, and that's it. You just let it run. That's it,
Mhm.
right? So we're not, if there's too much hype, or we talk too big about it, then people will be
Right.
like,
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
what's going on? Am I missing something here? Where's all the
Yeah.
functionality?
Maybe there's
Yeah.
like a word to use for it, just to, like as Christoph said, this is not to replace the GUI. People shouldn't think that when they download it, they're ready to just run a full
Or any
node.
wallet they have, right?
Yeah.
This
Mhm.
will not replace any wallet people have at the moment.
Is there a word that in there has to be? There's a word for this, like that. It's a test something. I don't know.
This is for all the node runners out there.
It's
I
like
don't
a
know, but
Yeah,
something about
it's
strengthening the network. That is kind of the mission of this application, right? Getting
yeah.
more people to run a node and verify things with their own devices.
This is an
yeah.
early stage test. Da 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 something. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll figure out the wording, but yeah, that's an important note. Make sure we don't oversell this
Yeah.
so people don't think it's something that it isn't.
Christoph and I used Airtable to capture people signing up for the Designathon. I really liked using it, and I'm almost like, I know with capturing user feedback, like you can get them to post in Slack, you can get them to fill in a Google form, but then people within the Bitcoin community, they're not too keen on giving over their personal data and that kind of thing. So Airtable is kind of allows you to create a form where you don't have to ask for any email addresses and that kind of thing. It can be completely anonymous. Create a couple questions. Just it's pretty quick. I don't know.
Yeah. So one important thing there is different avenues. So people, again, so there's no friction for them to provide feedback. So we
Yeah.
can accept feedback in many different avenues, like, Google Form, just a simple comment on the dev repo or the design repo, any of them. And maybe other ways that are easy. We could also just look at Twitter comments, if anything, right, and collect that. I
I
would
mean,
say, yeah,
hmm.
yeah, go ahead.
Ideally, I think I experienced. I had a phone call with the Alpi team recently about this. There's a little bit of a tricky thing when you allow feedback from all the different sources, which is ideally the most user friendly way. But ideally, like you would have on the GitHub, like the link to the Airtable form, on the Twitter, the link to the Airtable form. So while the opportunity to provide feedback is on all the different platforms, it leads to one funnel, like you know, one true source, like one place where everything goes in at the same time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we can always aggregate it. So, for example, like the Twitter comments, if anything, we can aggregate them ourselves into the format we want them.
Yeah.
But so other core devs, they've done user feedback collecting before for several projects.
Yeah.
So I know Andrew, he wanted to learn something about how people use the wallet, and I think he used Google Form.
Yeah.
He got a lot of feedback, but ultimately for what he was doing, it wasn't useful.
Yeah.
But it seemed like the Google Forms worked several times before.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll have different avenues. I've never heard of Airtable. I'll have to see that.
It's pretty much the same like a Google form. It's
Okay.
pretty much the same, but it doesn't have Google attached to it. It's like a neutral,
That's good.
it's like a neutral party, which I think maybe might be better well received by our audience. I'm just thinking out loud.
That's true. No, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, but I think with Twitter, I think we get what we want. We're not really looking for metrics, as in people like this much and people dislike that much. We're really just looking for engagement and for if people really don't like something, then we want to know. If people really like something, then good, because we're doing something right there. So maybe that's another thing. Yeah, Christoph, you wanted to say something.
No, nothing important. My mind's already on to the next topic about what needs to be wrapped up code-wise, because I looked at it earlier. I saw 2 issues were closed. The block log code does not seem to be merged in yet, right?
Yeah. So with the code, so Habasto last night closed the options handling branch he posted, because we were talking about it last night, and the approach isn't what we want to do. So that needs to be reworked a bit. Technical wise, it's QML is doing away with a couple of things, and we don't want to start with some legacy code that then needs a heavy refactor afterwards. So we need to adopt a new approach to it. I was working on it late last night. I only slept a few hours, but that's moving along. The block clock I've taken more ownership of. So the block clock code doesn't work, the branch that's open. So a lot of work with that. But that's going to wrap up. The heavy lifting for the block clock is that we're using the proper interface. So I think I've talked about before, one of the issues is it's taking these internals that we shouldn't be collecting in the GUI, and we have an interface, like a clear defined separation that we can call and get data from. So that needs to be done. But there really isn't too much left to be done with the options in the block clock. I'd say the more difficult things are actually these little UI issues that pop up, especially with Android. Technically, those should take up a little more time, and we'd have to think about. We'll get to that, but that's kind of the summary on the code update.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just because the block log is such an essential thing. It has these different states, and it should animate nicely and render crisply and all of this stuff. So that's a big thing. But I also understand your point about the other small UI things with different interactive states and whatnot. Yeah, I'd love to get the hands on there. And if maybe if you, I mean, are you planning to work on this kind of on a day-to-day basis now, or?
Oh yeah. So all day long on these things, yeah.
Okay, maybe we just need a little bit more of a quicker back and forth directly on Slack or in spontaneous calls or so until end of the month to wrap these things up.
Yeah, sounds good. We'll do that.
If you think it's helpful, right?
Yeah, definitely. So if anything comes up, I'll just quick fire messages. But so it'd be useful to me to know your time zones, so I know when's a reasonable time to expect a message.
You can always in Slack, you can always click on a person's name to see their profile, and it shows their current time there.
Okay.
But Mo and I, we're in Central Eastern, so it's 3:30 p.m. for us.
Okay.
Now.
Yeah, 9 a.m. for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the options in block clock, kind of dragging out a while. But one thing that's concerning to me, really more than them right now, because Android is so important, is there's many issues with the Android UI.
Mhm.
And so, Mo, I was quickly looking at the code, and I think we should be able to go back to Android 4.1.
You can, which would work on the phone that I bought.
So, is it Android 4.1?
I've left it downstairs, but I can have a
Okay,
quick
that's fine.
Google. It is a Samsung, what was it? Galaxy Neon Pro.
Now, the only consideration, because with Android you can always flash a custom ROM that puts you above. The only thing that's required is that it has a 64-bit processor, so we don't support 32-bit Android. But kind of moving away from that, so I have a couple of issues here open on the UI for Android. Gonna send it. Should I send it in this call chat or on Slack?
Slack is better. Maybe you can just
Okay.
reply to that message so you don't spam the main channel.
So I'm sending in the message where Christoph said call coming up in less than 10 minutes.
Okay.
So this first one I sent is easy. We just need to refactor the onboarding info page to apply to all the onboarding pages. But so these next ones I'm going to send, they're a little more complex. So you guys should click on the second link I sent really instead of the first one.
Yeah, so I have a Samsung whatever here, and we were testing it last week, and definitely noticed that. So that is a super common thing. Lots of Android phones are these super wide screens, and most websites and apps look like crap on when you rotate them this way.
Yeah.
It's just part of the format somehow. So there's and I remember some apps even lock it, so you can't even get into landscape mode.
Yeah.
That is also
Which
an
which
option
would
there.
be one of the things we could do. We could just prevent it from being rotated.
Yeah.
Now, so the thing with this issue is if you look at the screenshot B, so the UI is actually not usable. So like there is no way to scroll down. So one thing we could do is add the ability to scroll down, but as of right now, the way it stands, if you're in this landscape mode, the rest of the UI is not usable.
Yeah, but I mean, any content view should become scrollable if the content doesn't fit the screen.
Maybe we need to add that in the code, but for now it doesn't work. Yeah.
Because there are also much smaller phones that are only 500 pixel, 568 or something pixel tall, where things might get a bit tight otherwise, and they need the scroll functionality. So even in portrait mode, you may need that.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a note of that. We'll revisit it. I'm thinking, at least for the V1 release, we would disable portrait mode. It's just one line in the Android manifest, and so we would disable that. And then so for this next one, this one's a little more difficult because 100% we can't disable this, and it requires us to think about how do we even tackle this. So it's the latest link I sent, and I'll give you guys like a minute to look at it.
Is it in Slack or?
Yeah, in Slack, it's in the thread where Christoph said, "Call coming up in less than 10 minutes. Are you ready?" And I'm just sending them in that thread.
Yeah.
I've also sent the specs of the phone that I bought, Gerald, if you want to have a look at that. I replied in that message as well.
So the thing with this next button here is that it really should follow the sticky logic in a way. So if you're familiar with CSS position sticky and all that, it's actually static up to a certain point. So basically, that it's not fixed to the bottom if the content is scrollable.
Right. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
So one of the latest changes made it so that it's always anchored at the bottom, a certain amount of pixels above the bottom of the screen.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's something we'd want to change. And so again, I guess we need to enable scrolling. Now, why this is different than the other one is we can't disable multitasking or the ability for the application to open in multitasking mode.
Mhm.
So even for V1, it's not something we can do. We could just say, listen, just don't do this. It doesn't work, and
Yeah.
this is something we'll tack later. But this is an important feature, right? On Android, if I'm going through, like, let's say, I self custody some Bitcoin on this app, and then I want to send to another app, right? It'd be really convenient to have them both open at the same time, and you copy and paste addresses from one another, right? So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, it seems like generally it works. It's really just this bottom anchoring that needs some more smarts and the correct scrolling logic.
Is that width of the button also good, Christoph, according to the original design?
Yeah, I mean, on desktop it has a maximum width. On mobile, it could fill, and on tablet, that's the thing with tablets. There's so many in between sizes, and there's always some size that's kind of awkward, no matter what rules you come up with.
Yeah,
It's impossible to prevent. So for tablet, I would also go for the maximum. Put in a max width, just like on desktop.
This is a good question also for the Airtable form. The testing of the version 1 is going to be done on, correct me if I'm wrong, on desktop Windows, desktop Mac, Android, and that's it.
And Linux.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, Gerald, we really should create this testing document where we also include landscape, mobile on portrait, very small device, very big device, tablet and portrait and landscape, and also this multitasking mode. Because these I mean, I forget about these things half the time too. So it's a test list is good to have. Or
Christoph, have you ever seen like when there's like a new Bitcoin Core release coming up, that there's like a document that comes out like V24 release candidate testing guide? Have you seen these?
I have not.
Yeah, so that's something that we do for every release, and actually I started that like 2 years ago. But yeah, so I can do that. I can do the release candidate testing guide. I'll make sure that it's good.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, of course, this is going to be one of the most important things is having this guide for people to go through and to perform these steps 100%. So
yeah,
Mo, really quickly, I have bad news for your phone. So it's 32-bit. I think that's the reason it's not running.
Okay.
Yeah. So it has to be a 64-bit.
Okay, so basically double the amount that I currently have. Okay, got you.
No. So it's just a processor. So the processor is just it talks a language that the application isn't talking, essentially.
Okay, I'll make a note of that, and I will go back to the shop tomorrow.
So I don't know if the people at the shop will any recent Android is 64-bit. It'd be if you show up at the shop and you're like, I need a 64-bit Android. I don't, it's just one that's not so old.
Yeah.
And that's funny because 2014 isn't so long ago, right?
But no, that's an eternity for smartphones.
Yeah.
It's like I just went to the shop down the road from. I paid €50 for it, which is probably about $60. And I was like, oh, this will work. And he asked me, do you need any specs? I'm like, no, just any Android's fine.
Yeah, so you could also we could also just do a quick check on Amazon, or if you share a link or something, so we can take a look at it before you do the purchase.
Yeah, I hope I kept the receipt for this because he told me I could bring it back in a week. I do need to check if I put the receipt somewhere.
He made sure to tell you, look, you can bring it back. You
I
might
think
be
it's on
bringing
receipt.
it back.
I think I have it. I hope I have it.
An Android phone I'd recommend, which is very cheap. I got it for $80. Is the Samsung Galaxy A12. So
Okay.
that's 64-bit. It's like a modern phone. It looks like a modern phone, and it's pretty cheap. So if you can find that.
Another thing, just to point out as well, is I know you said that you mentioned you could run it on an emulator as well. I downloaded the Blue Box emulator on my Windows PC, and I got an error running the binary, running it there as well. So
What was the error?
I can try run it again now while we're on the call. Maybe you guys can carry on talking, but
Okay.
yeah, BlueStacks. Sorry, I downloaded BlueStacks, and then I tried running it in BlueStacks.
So Gerald, I think I also have this A12. I'm not totally sure, but I think I have that. So Mo, the way that I think about it is, I buy a phone that's maybe 1 or 2 years old, not the
Mhm.
latest version of something, but something one behind. And I also try to look for a very popular brand and a very popular device, because it's most likely that people actually use it, and I get to experience what other people experience. So Samsung Galaxy is incredibly popular.
Yeah.
Tons
But
of
just
people
go
buy
for a bit of
them.
a newer version. Yeah.
Yeah, because the one that's a year old is always just a lot cheaper than the latest one.
Yeah.
There's kind of a big price drop, and you don't need all the latest specs necessarily. So there's something in the middle usually somewhere. And a lot of stores, stores always have these discounts, or if you can get in a sale or so, it's also a good opportunity.
No, this is a secondhand store. So I'm getting a secondhand phone. I'm not buying new. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
But Christoph, one thing though you mentioned is these small Android phones. That's something I think I'm going to look for to get, because that's another edge case, right? Where we want to make sure that the GUI works. Mo, the sad thing with yours is sufficiently small, so it's a 480 wide, but it won't run the GUI at all. But if I can find one that's like 480, I think that's a good device to test. But I think we can move on from.
So just real quick, here are Figma has these predefined sizes. To the left is Android small, to the right is Android large, and then I'll pick iPhone 14 Plus. So you can kind of see the difference in sizes that we're dealing with here.
That is a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Sorry.
Let me share my screen. I'll show you. I'm running it on the emulator. As I said, it will literally take 1 second. Where is the emulator? Here's the emulator here. No, here it is. So then I click Bitcoin Core. Fatal error, your application cannot be started. And this is BlueStacks app player. But that was the error that I got. So I will stop sharing. Stop sharing.
Okay. Oh, right. Yeah. So again, it's the problem of it's just not talking the correct language. So you have an x86 laptop. Just take that for what it is. And an Android is ARM. So it's just a completely different CPU type. And the binary is for ARM 64. It's not meant to be run on x86. So the emulator would have to emulate ARM 64, which the Android development suite IDE has that, but that's a little complicated.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would just recommend having a dedicated
Just
phone
get the
to
Android.
run that.
Yeah, I'll get the Android. Yeah, cool. There was something else I was thinking about. I've completely forgotten. No.
The next thing I wanted to talk about was with the Figma files. But first, I wanted to open it up if you guys had something you wanted to discuss first.
Oh, website update here.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like that's perfect, right? I even like the checkbox because for like when I write the guides or when I help other people write the release candidate guides, it's on Markdown and there's no convenient way. But we have our own website, so it's like a nice little thing on the right where it's like, okay, I did this stuff. Now I'm gonna do the next one, right? So I love that touch. But in general, I like the idea you presented there.
In general, but you hate it in specific.
No,
I'm kidding.
it's just the information we have to fill it in, right? So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The details need to be figured out. So what's a good way to do that? Should I just kind of create a pull request for it, and you can just commit stuff to it, or I don't know.
Yeah, one thing I wasn't clear on, and I guess I could have just looked better, is so what specifically is the repo for this website?
So that is the main design repo, and there's a gh-pages branch in there that has the website. So it just lives in that branch.
Yeah. So I guess I can just get the details of that later. But a PR would work, and I guess I can review and write in the information, or I can just submit a new PR based on yours with the changes.
Yeah, I mean, we can also edit the text here in Figma or so, or you can send me a Google Doc with text you want me to paste in, or so. Either one is fine. Whatever works.
Yeah.
You just have to let me know. Maybe it's easier if, so for example, everything here under verification, all of these tips are straight out taken from bitcoincore.org. I don't know, we could even link out to bitcoincore.org if you want to keep it simple for now and don't have duplicates. Not sure.
I mean, I don't think the verification would be the same. We're gonna Geeks build it, and that's just it. It's just how we officially build Bitcoin Core. But we wouldn't want to link to Bitcoin Core because that's verifying something slightly different.
Okay.
So yeah, we'd want our own. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not a copy paste in the end either. So this would have
Yeah.
to change. Okay.
Yeah, but it's a really good format. I think one thing though that I'd want to kind of check with other people is that the format is accessible, right? That it's not intimidating. So that's something, one thing I saw recently on Twitter is how the assumptions we make as people who are really close to it are just not the assumptions that other people make or how they want to approach things. So, with all the fiasco that happened, I saw this person who was moving onto the Bitcoin QT GUI. And then she posted, well, I didn't know what application to run because, you have Bitcoin QT, you have Bitcoin Wallet, you have however many other things. And she didn't know which one is the GUI. Because what does QT mean, right? That's not accessible, right? And so a little change there is maybe for this new GUI we build, it's Bitcoin app instead of Bitcoin QT. Like that's the executable name, right? But that's just like a little thing where I wouldn't think about it.
Even the word GUI to me was completely foreign. I knew up until I started working with you guys. I was like, I remember being on a call and asking, what's a GUI? What is a GUI? I don't know what a GUI is. Yeah.
It's a technical description, graphical user interface.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, and that's why it's just called app now. Because even any general application, everything is just an app now, whether it's desktop, mobile. You just have an app on your device.
Yeah.
That was my question. This was so Christoph. So this section here that says provide early feedback, we would kind of be able to link. So let's say we do a Twitter post and then we put a link. The link would be able to guide them to this part of the page specifically.
I mean, there isn't really much above it.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, perfect. Okay, perfect. Yeah, this is perfect. Yeah. And then just a form underneath. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
And this is not as simple and slick as some typical fancy marketing website where it's
Yeah.
directly tagline download button. We're not there at this moment. So we make you read a little bit more, scroll just a little bit, but it's
Yeah.
also not too much. It's also
Yeah.
pretty obvious.
Would it be possible to make a stronger call to action, like a button to submit the feedback? Is it possible to make that a button so that it's a bit more like in your face kind of thing?
Well, if you put a visual button in here, then people will click that because it will have visual prominence over everything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
And people don't have feedback at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
We may also have this tips for testing and providing feedback. This may also be something we put on the download page down here, maybe somewhere down here, because otherwise people will read this and then like, why do I need to know the details about providing feedback if I don't even know, I don't have it downloaded yet or so.
Yeah, the first step is the download, and after the download is the feedback. Is there a way to put something in the download that once they've downloaded it, they get something that says, okay, now you can provide feedback? Is there something that you could like put in the code that could do that? Or
No,
no?
because we'd need like a server and then ping the server. Okay, the application finished downloading.
Well, I mean, we have website here and some other stuff, but no, there's nothing like that right now. But we want to put the seed in people's brains that it's very easy to provide feedback, and they're here
Yeah.
to provide feedback because it's called provide early feedback, right?
Oh, sorry,
So-
guys. I need to just get my door. I'll be back in.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So we want to provide the seed, send them to the download, and then when they use it, they're like, oh yeah, I'm doing this here to test it and provide feedback. And then they're like, okay, now I'm going to do it.
Yeah. I guess one thing we could do is if inside of this website, we'll have the link to the download. And if they were to click the link, then, you could show the button for feedback. But that's just one thing.
Yeah, it's just kind of tricky here.
So one thing I wanted to talk about was the Figma, but I want to word it eloquently. Like I want to describe what the issues are. So I think I'll open issues on the design repo like I used to before, talking about the concerns or the questions. So I'll leave that for then, for when I make the issues.
Yeah, that's great. I'm sorry, the last 2 months or so were just totally nuts, and a lot of Bitcoin Core stuff has kind of fallen wayside. But now that that's over, I hope we can very quickly pick everything up and get organized.
Awesome. Yeah.
But yeah, what are your concerns? I mean, obviously we have the concern about the file getting messed up, and I don't know if maybe you can see it here or not. If I press like divider here and I search all the components, I have like 3 different ones that are called list item / divider. One of them is the official one that we agreed upon in the design system. The other ones are ones that someone somehow probably created in their workspace, but it's just impossible to tell. So there's a contamination, not contagion, but contagion is in other places these days, but contamination happening where we don't have a clean component space here now because we're mixing up workspace and kind of the formal design system. So I think that's one where we have to separate things out again.
Yeah. So how do you guys want to address that?
The only option is to move workspaces out. Everyone works in their own file, and then things get carefully merged into this main file by a maintainer.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me, right? That's kind of how development occurs.
Except that this has to be done manually. So let's say Mo does some design and we all agree like this is the best design in the world. Then I will have to, or if I'm the person, I will have to copy her design over, recreate it in the main file using the component, like the main components from that main file, and then delete hers again from the new file, from the main file. So there's like a manual process. It's almost like,
Yeah.
let's say you want to merge your PR, I have to go and recreate, and recreate your code changes like in the main branch. That would be the
Yeah, that
equivalent.
sucks.
It's not that complex, right? Our screens are fairly simple and whatnot, but it is just a step that's involved.
Okay. And so I guess the convenient way would be the Figma Pro or whatever, because then you have like branches within this.
Yeah,
But
actually,
that costs money.
Actually, enterprise, not even pro. So that would cost, I think, per person over $500
Oh
per
my
year.
God. Okay. Wow.
It's just so ridiculous. It's like,
Yeah.
where are we? Like, didn't we have like all these free
Yeah.
apps for years now, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, 500 euros for one feature.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Figma was supposed to be this like free, pivot away from something like Adobe, right? But something that's extremely useful for designers to work collaboratively costs you more than Adobe, right? Because I think like Adobe for the year is a little less than that.
I mean,
Not
Adobe
sure.
Cloud subscription is like $30 or euros per month right now, and I get like 15 different, super sophisticated applications,
Yeah.
and like paying like 1.5 times as much for a single feature in Figma.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well.
but who knows? It might be part of the Creative Cloud very soon.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Hopefully, we can figure that out. I guess if that makes your life difficult, we'd want to address it. I think.
No,
Why
it's
don't?
fine. Like I
Yeah.
already do a lot of this stuff with the UI kit. I'm used to it, I guess. It's fine. It's not that difficult. I think I don't
Okay.
think we have that many crazy complex changes and things happening.
Okay. Awesome.
Just a quick
Yeah.
question: how many screens will the version 1 have that rolls out? It's just pretty much going to be the onboarding, right?
Yeah.
Um,
So take a look at the V1 Node Runner page in Figma. That is
Let
pretty
me
much.
make a note here. V1 Node Runner page. Okay. Let me just make a note here. Da-da-da-da-da. Yes. Okay.
Our developer console will not be in there, right? So we need to move that out into V2.
Yeah. Most likely won't be in there.
Yeah. Okay.
With the screens, you have onboarding. Another set of screens you have is, of course, the node page, which is the block clock. Then you have the settings that branch out from there.
Yep.
So that's just another set of pages. So not so many.
It's really manageable, the whole thing.
Yeah.
But like we said earlier on too, big part of this version is to have a really solid foundation, code-wise, design-wise, interaction-wise. And then it'll be much easier to build on top of that afterwards.
So it's pretty much going to be those first 2 rows up there that we're looking at. Those 2.
Yeah, I mean, this is for mobile, and this is the same one for desktop below it. I need to clean it up just a little bit.
Yeah.
Also some examples for light mode down here. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, there's some cleanups like connection. That's not how it is anymore. But one thing I was thinking about is, should we have a place within this Figma project, I guess, as a whole, where we have all of the screens, whether it be a screenshot or whether it be designed like this, where we represent all of them one-to-one as they are in the development repo? Or
so that's in the design docs where I'd like to have that.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah. So as you've let me just switch over to that here. So we do have in the sidebar V1 first use, block clock, V2 wallet explorer console. And those subpages is where I'd like to have screenshots of all the different screens with descriptions. And we can link to discussions, anything else we want to have on there. And maybe some features could be even pulled out a little bit further with subpages. Because I think it's the most accessible if it's on a website. And
I
things are
agree
hidden in
with you.
GitHub, things are hidden in Figma.
Yeah.
This will be very accessible.
Most people are not going to go to GitHub. Like, it's when you put GitHub in coming into play, you kind of almost exclude a very big audience. You're really only then including the really technical, not really technical, but developers, So this is definitely more accessible. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a big barrier with GitHub, and that is you need an account on GitHub. And so, how many of these people are going to have an account on GitHub? Probably not so many.
Yeah.
So that's completely exclusionary.
Yeah. So, but does it work? Do you have any thoughts, concerns, anything else? I mean, it will.
Yeah,
It will
that
just,
works.
It will. We'll just have to maintain it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the case with everything. If it doesn't maintain it, nature will claw it back, or chaos will.
Yeah, if we include them near the end where V1 is almost done, then there probably shouldn't be too much maintenance work with that. At least until we start revamping everything with V2, if we need to revamp things.
Yeah, that's why in the sidebar here I also had V1, V2. We might have V1 first use and V2 first use, and then maybe V1 at some point drops further down, or it disappears altogether at some point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right.
So V2 right now is work in progress or future. But once
Awesome.
that becomes the norm, then we don't need that separation distinction anymore.
It'll feel good to drop V1.
No, it'll feel good for V1 to be polished and live and usable.
Right.
Let's get there first.
100%. Like I enjoyed when we were when I tried it out on Christoph's phone, his Android. It was great using it. I really wanted it to work, but I guess I just need to upgrade my Android and try it out. But I have a question. Why is it only going to be on Android and not on iOS as well?
It's not cool
Yeah,
enough.
so the enemy here is Apple, right? I mean, there's just so many things with that. Build system wise, Apple and their closed garden, we need an organization. Side loading apps, and it's a mess. It is a complete mess. And people have tried before to have like a small Bitcoin D binary accessible on iOS, but it's a huge hassle. Now we'll try to tackle that later on. I think when the GUI is finished, I think it'd be exciting, and Habasa would be on it to try to tackle that. But I mean, Apple is it's Apple.
So you're talking. So the technical side is one thing, right? Actually making it functionally work. The other side is that. By the way, will this be in the Play Store?
In the to upload it to the Play Store, we need an organization.
Exactly.
We do have.
In that sense, both the Play Store and the App Store are the same in that you have to register, that you're a registered developer, that you can have a link to your support page and all of this stuff, because that's kind of what people expect from applications. And otherwise, Android was super loose for a long time, and it was like filled with spam, for years, the Play Store. So they all tightened it up. So both getting into Play and App Store, you need kind of a company. And Bitcoin Core doesn't have a company. Maybe someone wants to form something around it and make that happen. Maybe with some little bit of funding or so. Maybe that is a possibility or not. Like a few people get together and try to do this. I have no idea how complex it is. But that's separate from the technical.
Wow. So it's just
So one funny thing is, I guess there is a company behind. No, it's a joke. But for Windows, we have to sign it, and so I believe there's an LLC, and so anybody. So this was made, I think, we had to renew it, I think, a year ago, and anybody who wanted to be a part of the LLC could have been. But so we do have that precedent where we'll concede and we'll make some sort of organization to have this available. And so for Android and for Apple, we can do that. It's just, this is way down the line. This is when this is included in the main repo, this has been shipped. Then afterwards we can talk with everyone about having that available there.
Yeah, and that also once there is wallet functionality, people might expect support, and someone might have
Mhm.
to answer emails like, "Sorry, we're just pushing this live. We're not, not our fault. You lost your Bitcoin or something." So
Yeah.
there's just stuff to figure out there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a tricky conversation, but what I do want to say is there's a way for us to have it on the Play Store and the Apple Store. And so, way down the line that could be there. The nice thing with Android is it's very easy. Well, I guess from my viewpoint, it's easy for users to install it on their phones. For iOS, there's just about no easy way. They'd have to, I think they have to jailbreak their phone, then they have to sideload these apps. So,
Yeah.
I
yeah.
mean, on Android, you just gotta download the file, double click it, and it installs. On
Yeah.
iOS, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You have to hack it
Guys, I'm
first.
gonna have to hop because I have to do something family related.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool.
So
Are we having a design call tomorrow or
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that because both Jakob and Michael are not there, and I don't know how many tasks we actually have or what we have to talk about. We
yeah.
could
Right.
we could have, I don't know, because I think the last one the one showed up was Mo and I, and we just kind of tested a little bit. So I
Mhm.
didn't plan anything.
Maybe like I mean, I'm just thinking out loud, like maybe I can use that time to create an Airtable form, which we need anyway.
Yeah.
And just use that time kind of like that, maybe. I'm happy to just jump online on a call or do that solo. Um,
Mo, if you have to drop off, you can drop off because you
yeah.
have to. Well, I can message you about like this last little minute thing we talked
Okay.
about.
Yeah, all right,
But
cool. Yeah.
yeah, Christoph, just quickly, it's so I am gonna post some issues on some of the design stuff. Um, so I'll do that today. So what I would say is if you guys have time, then we can do that. But
Mhm.
if you guys don't have time, then we won't do it.
How about we just decide it spontaneously in the morning? I will
Okay.
definitely try to take time to implement this sidebar stuff here, work on this copy a little bit, and also whatever issues you post. Because for example, if I can mock up this multitasking mode in the Figma file, and we could maybe also show it in the website, then it'll be much more visible for people who want to test it and also see what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah.
So there's just some stuff that I want to take a look at.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll decide in the morning, I guess. And a question is also if I'll be awake at 5 a.m. I think that
Yeah,
5 a.m. is when you get So,
yeah.
Johnny, you're late. The time zones change. Oh, maybe his mic isn't on. But yeah. So the calls happen an hour earlier now for us, I guess, here in America.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Well,
and
we can wrap up and
one quick question. I really want to test the BlockLog code, but I don't think it's
okay.
working right now, right?
It's so for example, if you were to compile it, and if you still have problems with compiling, oh, you don't have to compile because it's in the PR description. You just download it.
Yeah, I
It'll
didn't.
run. It's not
I
there.
don't think it built though. I think there was a little X next to the thing.
Let me see.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
Choose a block
yeah, you
clock.
also left a comment.
Yeah, I didn't
Something
build.
about branch doesn't build.
Yeah, it doesn't build. um.
Yeah,
Uh. Okay.
but it's not urgent if you're doing. But I guess if you could just let me know or so, at which point that would be possible, because it's just so essential.
Yeah. ARM64. Mac OS. The Mac OS ARM64 did build. It's just that the link isn't there. So I can send you the link that downloads this binary, and then you can try it out. It doesn't. Yeah, well, you'll see. You'll see. There's a couple of things wrong with it, but
Okay, I see it under
Second.
checks. I can kind of see what worked and what didn't. CentOS 8, ARM. Okay, cool. Sounds good.
148. Here, I'm gonna send it right now on Slack in that same thread.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll wrap up. Yeah, things should be moving a lot quicker now. Can devote as much time to finishing this up, and just excited to ship this out there in the world. I think it can do a lot of good.
Yep. Same. I'm gonna stop the recording now.
Okay.
Real quick. So thanks to all who listened in.